The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and don't necessarily reflect the views of WOWT.
Omaha has a big tradition of big Hollywood movies. We had people like Henry Fonda, Marlon Brando, and the like. Well, it continues, and I'll tell you all about that in just a second. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about my friends at Havana Garage in the Old Market. I've talked about them every podcast. Why? Because it's just a nice place. It's a nice place to go with your friends, maybe on a date, your spouse. You go out there, you maybe have some dinner in the Old Market. Maybe you got a movie or a concert you're going to downtown, or just hanging out in the park. Still some nice weather out there to hang out downtown in the park. Make Havana Garage a part of your downtown event. Havana Garage in the Old Market, with the nice little selection there of whiskeys and cigars, and of course, that rat-packed atmosphere. Tell them Becca sent you at Havana Garage. Okay, so I mentioned the Hollywood connection with Omaha. I mean, because you talked about some of the all-time greats. Marlon Brando, Henry Fonda, Nick Nolte. Maybe not a great, but a big name, right? And of course, the most latest, Alexander Payne, and the Oscar winner Alexander Payne, his connection with Omaha. Well, that connection continues with a young up-and-coming filmmaker who I've known since he was a kid, because he's one of my nephew's best friends, Nick Beaulieu. Nick Beaulieu has come up with a movie. Nick has come up with a movie that is entitled My Omaha. And I've seen it, and like I told you earlier, I'd be polite and say, hey, nice job. But after watching the movie, I genuinely like it. I mean, it really, it's a moving, emotional movie that deals with a lot of different issues. Before we get into the conversation here, let's run the trailer. Give people an idea of just what this movie is all about.
My dad and I had a special bond, but as I got older, it began to change. How do you think I identify politically?
On the Democratic side of things.
How would you identify yourself politically?
Conservative. Very conservative.
Everyone's been talking about how America has become more divided than ever before. But Omaha has been divided for a really long time. We're extremely segregated.
We grew up in North Omaha where people have died from shootings.
Do you know why you made that sign again? Because the system didn't change. You didn't change. Because you don't do your homework.
For any transformation to happen, it goes with changing oneself. And then the next leap is family.
And then I get some news that totally changes everything.
It's stage 4 cancer. I'm possibly going to die.
Dad is willing to keep the conversation going.
What do you think it means to be an American?
It means that you're free to be all that you can be, and the possibilities are boundless.
These talks make you feel good. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make you feel insanely uncomfortable.
You have a whole different set of facts than I do. One of us is right, one of us is wrong. As your dad, I want you to know the truth.
Sometimes you'll meet complete strangers that will change your whole life.
In humankind, we got to spend time together to have a shared experience. That's what really changes the world.
I wonder if it's even possible to work through our differences.
My Omaha. It that one little trailer said there. It said, "Don't expect answers, but expect to be moved." So the story is an issue. It's juxtaposing race relationships in Omaha with the relationship that you have with your father. How did this all come about?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me, Tom. So the film is very much a story about my personal journey that I took as someone who grew up in Omaha, lived in Omaha, kind of became a journalist, became a filmmaker, and was driven to understand what I thought was the biggest story in our city which was how we could kind of coexist, but in two kind of separate worlds, like the tale of two Omahas that most people in North Omaha had been talking about, but you would also hear elsewhere. So it started from that place of kind of trying to understand my city better. But I realized as the years kind of went on that the political climate in the country was starting to get more and more intensified. And also, it was very telling to me that I couldn't even really talk about this project back at home without there being some kind of tension and kind of conflict about it. So I kind of decided to like embrace my own perspective. And also I saw it as an opportunity to get a more conservative perspective into the movie. That's like right around when my dad got sick. So I kind of, made a big pivot to focus on that, but it was still very important to me to see how the activism and the racial justice side of things in the city were evolving. So I kind of stayed in that world and the relationships I had. I kind of started filming with my dad, and together I think the two stories paint a portrait of Omaha.
Because you started this, like, how long ago?
2016 is really when it began.
Yeah, because I remember seeing you and my nephew talking about, I have my buddy Nick, he's making this movie, and that was, oh, that's nice. A nice kid doing a little project. And I saw you around town. I did not expect it to be this good, quite honestly. This is your first time with the movie, right? Doing a documentary. Are you going to be do you want to be a documentary filmmaker, or is this just a film that you've made on your way to doing like feature films?
Well, yeah, I want to be a filmmaker, and I think whether it's a documentary or whether it's a narrative film, it's going to kind of be dictated by kind of what opportunities are out there. A part of me would really love to make another documentary because, you spend 8-9 years making one. I made so many mistakes, and there's so much that I would like to have another crack at, because I think I could do another film much better actually than this. At the same time, my love is with narrative fiction films too. So we'll see. What I really want to do also is collaborate. This film was like very much, you saw, as how it started. It was just me with a camera going around town. It was really self-generated for the very beginning, 4 or 5 years. It was a very lonely process until I finally got the means and the story got good enough where I could involve people. I would like to kind of start from a place next time of being more collaborative.
I'd have to think that this is a good starting point, that you've got some street cred, as the kids say now. So let's go back to this. First of all, the movie is going to be performing in Omaha. My Omaha will be in Omaha at the Dundee Theater. The film streams are in Dundee. And what are the show dates?
Yeah, so our opening night premiere is October 14th. Very excited to say it's sold out, which is really exciting. However, starting the 17th, is when the showtimes begin that are still available. So from October 17th to October 23rd, it's going to be available. And the Friday, Saturday, Sunday showtimes are all going to be in the Peggy Payne Theater, 300-seat theater. It's a beautiful screen. And those showtimes are available on the Film Streams website.
Wonderful. So, yeah, now, as I understand it, and maybe I didn't get all the information. You were going to be in the big theater for the premiere, and then all the other ones were going to be in the smaller theater, right? They've moved now some of the showings into the bigger theater?
Yeah, I think the demand generated them opening it up, which is awesome. It's the reception's been really amazing to see. I think it speaks to people seeing their city represented and obviously being interested in that, but also the political climate right now. It's so relevant, the story, so the timing couldn't be better.
Yeah, I want to get into that because you had some real heart-to-heart talks with your father, and it's all documented. What was that like?
It was intense. It was healing. It was, I grew a lot from it, learned a lot from it. There's something about having a camera when you're having conversations like that gives you a lot more courage than you otherwise would. It also gives you a good excuse to talk about stuff you otherwise wouldn't. So I found that when I set the camera up, I put it on a tripod, and it was time to talk, it was sort of like, why leave anything unsaid? Like this is why we're here, is to talk. you add the fact that he's got this ticking clock, right, of his cancer, and that we knew that we weren't going to have that much time together. I think we both just wanted to try the best we could to reconnect. And the only way to do that was to talk it out.
How did the rest of your family feel about all of this?
In the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism and a lot of nervousness because, one, there was a lot of, raw emotion about my dad having passed, right? Then you combine that with a story that's extremely political, a story that's racial, that has all of these kind of very sensitive topics. And some of my family honestly was a little bit, kind of freaked out, I think. And that was very difficult as a filmmaker because it was kind of when I was at my lowest. I had invested so much time in the movie. My dad had died. I had quit my job to work on this movie. And I was struggling to get the funding and the right people in place to make it. And so I had that hanging over me for a long time. But what's been really great is now that we've premiered it and my family's actually had a chance to watch it in completion, some of them have seen it with an audience. They've come to really appreciate it, most of them, and that means everything. So,
you mentioned that seeing with an audience. You've been in the Slamdance Film Festival, which is one of the maybe not the top major, but it's a mid-major film festival. It gets a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs out there in L.A. You've been in a number of other film festivals. You're now here on the circuit here. How do you market a film like this? I mean, obviously, My Omaha is going to get a lot of attention in Omaha. You have a lot of friends and family here. They're going to want to come out and support it. But, why would anybody in Atlanta want to see it? Why would anybody in Des Moines want to see it or, any other city?
Yeah, well, and I'll say with Slamdance, we were kind of a perfect fit for that because this film is truly an independent documentary, and that's what their festival takes. And marketing and distributing an independent film is really hard. There's no companies that come in and front the marketing or have all the relationships with theaters or, connections to distribution services. You have to do all that yourself. So you either have to, do all that heavy lifting on your own, or you have to find the money to pay people who are specialists in it. I'm lucky to have a really great team of people that have come on board to help advise in some ways, like my producer, Doug Block, as a producer in New York, who's awesome. He's become like a mentor. We're also working with Cartemquin Films, who we partnered with. They are the production company who made like Hoop Dreams and Minding the Gap, like very prestigious documentaries. They've given us some credibility also to kind of show that this film has true like social impact potential. What I'm learning is that you have to be basically just as scrappy to distribute your film as you do making it, So the same energy that I had running around Omaha with a camera and just trying to film everything I could and form relationships, kind of the same way you got to get it played. And I'll say we've also had a couple lucky breaks too. Like we were approached for this opportunity called the In Real Life Film Club or Movie Club. And they are going to put our film in theaters on October 12th. And at the moment, we're at 73 theaters in more than 30 states. And that's a very rare, unique initiative. But, I mean, that kind of reach is going to be pretty amazing. We're hoping that's a springboard.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that Steven Spielberg has something to do with this, right? Or at least is connected to it in some way?
Yeah, his foundation, the Hearthland Foundation, sponsored this program. So every In Real Life Movie Club choice basically has a nonprofit sponsor. And the Hearthland Foundation, like their mission is very much aligned with kind of the civic engagement aspect of our movie. So credit to Annie Roney, who she founded Rocco Films, and she also started this initiative. She loved our movie. She chose us. She found the right sponsor, and she helped make it all happen.
And as I said, I'm not just being polite. It is a very good movie. It is a very good movie, and you're hearing that from other people. So you must be very proud of it.
I am. Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, it's I could have only hoped to have honestly just finished it like that. There was a point in time where that was really my goal. It means so much that, people are responding to it the way they are and that they like it.
So is there a bigger distribution deal down the road? Are you working on something to be able to get that into other theaters?
Yeah, we're working with a theatrical booker right now who is going to kind of take it city to city and try to find an opportunity to play it. A lot of that's probably going to be next year because the fall and winter is really competitive with all the major studios releasing films and Oscar race movies, you know. But yeah, we're hoping that kind of early next year we're going to play in some places. We'll play in Lincoln, for example, next year. That's already in the works, and hopefully some other places. The idea is that really we wanted to start with Omaha and spread it out throughout the country. And, you know, while it's very much an Omaha story, it's finding resonance anywhere in America, you know, because it's an American story.
I want to stop you on that because it's not an Omaha story. I mean, you know, and it could have very well fallen into that, you know. Yeah, Omaha is the setting, but it's a real human story. It's a real human story about the different races, people that don't connect, people that don't know. I mean, you mentioned, you know, I mean, you're a graduate of Millard North, so you lived out in Western Omaha. Probably didn't have a lot of connection with people in North Omaha until you started doing this film. And actually, when you started doing the film, a lot of people in North Omaha had a bit of a problem with, you know, some West Omaha white kid coming in there trying to talk about race relations, right?
Well, I have to give most folks credit that they were extremely generous with me and considerate. And, you know, honestly, in many cases, I felt more comfortable in North Omaha than I have in West Omaha once I got to know people. And, you know, Leo Lewis being the prime example of someone who was really helpful. You know, when I started doing this with him, he was very, you know, upfront with me about, you know, the history that these kind of projects have when it comes to filmmaker community relations and it not really being a very, you know, good outcome for the community. So we talked a lot about how to change that dynamic, and I gave him a lot of credit for trusting me, and I trusted him, and that's what plays out in the film.
You mentioned Leo. Leo is the leader of the Malcolm X Foundation, or former leader of the Malcolm X Foundation, and the community activist, community leader. Activist has maybe a negative connotation, but he is a community leader in North Omaha. Now, your father never saw the finished product.
No.
Do you have any idea what he would have thought of it?
Yeah, think about that. You know, one of the best compliments I've gotten is from people who say, my dad would be proud. I think even you said that when you first watched it, which meant a lot. So I like to think that he would really, you know, respect and identify that coming together. But, you know, so much of the film only exists because of his passing and because of his sickness. So it's really kind of a hypothetical that's hard to answer. And you know, my dad was not around to see the 2020 election, the Capitol insurrection, you know, basically everything that happened in the Biden years and Trump's reelection. So it's hard to say where he would be now. But what was really beautiful to watch during the making of the movie was that him grappling with his mortality, I think, made him a more gentle, thoughtful person, which also affected his politics too.
Yeah, because, I mean, your dad was a big Trump supporter, big MAGA supporter, and you're not. Before doing this movie and having these heart-to-heart talks, was there a lot of friction between you guys? The movie starts off, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but it starts off with just showing, you know, a dad and his little kid, you know, fishing and hanging out, and, you know, but as you go through, you know, the teen years, young adulthood, relationships do change somewhat. Was there friction between you guys before the filming? Because I never saw any yelling or screaming or anything between the interviews, but was there behind the scenes before all of this?
Yeah. I mean, it was not anything like, you know, shouting and screaming, but it was just there was a tension, you know, and it was really from post-grad college, you know, to the point of making the film, a period of 4 or 5 years. And it was, you know, because I think I was, you know, becoming more liberal. My dad was getting more conservative, you know. You know, like politics in our household, the way I grew up, was just so ingrained in the fabric. So it made it extra hard that we were now on different sides. I mean, I had the kind of childhood where like there's a moment in the film where I'm reading a Christmas letter, right? My dad used to write me Christmas letters every Christmas, kind of recapping my year. It was very sweet. But he has, the opening of the Christmas letter is like, railing on Obama. But that, to me as a kid, was not abnormal. It's when you look at it now, it kind of seems crazy, but like that was just kind of how it was. Like we talked about politics, we talked about the government, we talked about all these things. So yeah, me going in a different direction caused some issues. And I think we both didn't know how to deal with that. Honestly, up until we started filming it. And then that finally allowed us to have some kind of conversations that had really festered,
What you experienced with your father is unfortunately not that unique. We live in a very politically divisive time right now. And what you and your dad went through, I think a lot of people can relate to it because they've gone through it with family members, friends, coworkers that they might have been close to. There is that divide that all too often people aren't going to sit down and talk and try to understand the other person. Was it hard for you to try to understand your dad's point of view?
Yes and no. One of the things that helped was when we were able to finally set aside like the facts or the sticking points of like things like policy or things about like Trump or whatever. And I asked him like, how does this make you feel just as a dad? And he told me it makes me feel like you don't trust me and that you don't think I'm intelligent. And that was able to like cut through all of the politics to understand that there was something much more deeper happening here emotionally. And for the first time, something actually clicked for me that like, I didn't understand how I was actually kind of like offending my dad. Not that it's like I shouldn't have been who I was, but like I didn't know that it was affecting him this way, that he was taking it so personally. That was a revelation for me. I learned very quickly while making the film that like you can only really get so far when you're dealing in the extremes when it comes to talking about the issues themselves, because there's not agreed upon facts. So like, yeah, we could talk about immigration or talk about COVID or something, but like there's not a single point of truth that we can both operate from where it's going to be productive. So when you're in that situation, I think that you just, you have to listen to the other person and you kind of have to accept you're not going to change them, but hope that maybe you can get a little more empathy for them.
But that's part of the film too that I really appreciated the fact, because you're right, your dad's information, the information he was getting was not the information that you were getting. I had a comment with somebody that I knew who talked about how after when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, when he was killed, that he had this one friend who only saw the Charlie Kirk that was teaching the gospel and family and strong family values, and that's all the snippets online that she saw. But all this other person saw were all the comments about race and LGBTQ issues and just very cruel in some cases comments. So his impression of Charlie Kirk was so much different than her impression of Charlie Kirk. And the reality is that it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think that's one thing that I liked about this movie, why I would recommend people go see it, because your dad was not a monster. Your dad was not a bad guy. He doesn't come across, he comes across as a loving father who, just does not understand the world that you live in. And I think a lot of people. What type of response have you gotten from people after they've seen the movie? I know how I feel about it. What have you heard from? And I'm not necessarily talking about critics or film students or whatever. I'm talking about like just audience members and comments you might have heard as walking out of the theater.
A lot of people will come up to me and say that the movie reminds them of their their parents or of their uncle, or they name drop a family member. And one of the greatest compliments I've gotten is when people say that it's actually motivated them to reach out to those people. So it is representing a pretty universal divide right now. And I'm hoping that it's maybe giving some people some inspiration, to try and make a difference in their lives when it comes to that relationship they have. I also learned that, a relationship takes two, when it comes to dealing with these issues. It's like I was not the only one responsible for my dad and I coming together. It was him too. He was willing to do it, and willing to have those really uncomfortable conversations and to be on camera for it. And so that's the hard thing, is that it can't be a one-sided thing. People, it has to be a mutual desire, and things are so inflamed and so intense that's harder and harder to find.
My Omaha going to be at the Film Streams Theater in Dundee on Tuesday, October the 14th. And then then the rest of the week, it'll be playing various showtimes throughout the week there at the Dundee Theater.
Yeah, October 17th through the 23rd.
I wanted to have a few more questions for you, but before I do that, I want one more time to thank the fine folks at Havana Garage in the Old Market, who have been a longtime sponsor of this podcast, and I do appreciate that. And appreciate it if you would stop on in and relax, have a cocktail, maybe smoke a cigar, some good conversation, and just enjoy the atmosphere at one of the Old Market's oldest establishments, Havana Garage in the Old Market. So now we've talked about the movie itself, and I didn't want to give too much of it away, but it is. I'm a big fan. So let's talk about now the future. Mm-hmm. All right. Can this movie qualify for an Academy Award or Golden Globe or some of the big awards next year? And how do you go about getting that into that?
It's probably unlikely. You have to have a certain theatrical run to be Oscar qualifiable. A lot of people pay a lot of money just to get that, and it doesn't really. It's kind of a vanity play, to be honest. Like, I think our film is amazing, but it's like a certain type of movie is the one that kind of fits the Oscar mold. So I don't know if that will happen. What I'm hoping for, that is more long shot, is I would love to get on a streamer. That's how people watch films now. Is they want to be able to watch it at home and on one of the services that they pay for. Whether or not that will happen is hard to say because the streamers are also a little bit averse to political content, right? You're talking about Disney and these places, so we'll see.
But this is it though. It is political content, but it's not my side's right, your side sucks. It's not. It is thoughtful political content. It's not the sort of flame-throwing stuff that we see so much of today.
Yeah, I would love for that nuance to be detected and appreciated, but we'll see. It's when I went to Slam Dance, I met a bunch of filmmakers just like me who made films on their own, really. With the help of other people, but really kind of like independent grassroots projects. And I think all these films are great, and none of us have distribution deals. And it's more kind of indicative of the industry, more so even than the content. It's just very tough to get your movie out there.
Yeah, where is the industry going now? Because, even the big Hollywood production companies are having a tough time these days. What the future is, obviously, streaming. The future is providing content. How do you make it through all of this and get through the next couple of years when the whole paradigm has changed so much?
Yeah, well, there's a few things that really kind of threaten the future of film, I think. AI is one. You're already seeing AI-generated content that is hard to spot. It's hard to tell if it was shot by a human or made by AI, and that's really freaky. The second is like YouTube. The way that people are used to consuming content is so much different now. So like, if you want to reach like a younger demographic or even just a wider demographic, making a YouTube video that is high production value and that has the same kind of like quality and journalistic ethos can be way more successful than kind of doing it the old-fashioned way, which is kind of how I made my film. I mean, I'm really glad I did it this way because, I love feature-length movies, like that play in a theater. I mean, I interned at Film Streams. I fell in love with movies that way. So it meant a lot to me to do it that way. But I do think a lot about, like, does it make sense to keep doing it that way? Because it certainly doesn't feel like the direction that we're going, as far as how to make stuff and how people want to watch stuff.
But and you're right. Look, especially with documentaries, I love watching the documentaries on Netflix and on all the other streaming services. And I will watch a documentary of a band that I don't really care about just because I find the story fascinating. Or other people that I don't necessarily care about that much. I do enjoy the documentaries, but there's something to be said about the communal feel of being in a theater with other people, whether it's to laugh or cry or think or whatever emotion that movie is going to bring you. There's something about that community, that communal feel in a theater that you don't get watching it at home. And I don't know how, I don't know what the future is as far as that goes.
Well, it's also, I think it's a further reflection of the breakdown of so many community aspects of our society, right? I mean, it's so much easier to stay at home and do lots of stuff, surf the internet, watch all your TV at home, I think it's similar to how people don't just go out as much as they used to in so many ways. Yeah, the communal aspect of watching a movie adds a lot to it. I mean, when I go and see a movie and I hear someone laugh at something I didn't laugh at, like that's part of the experience, Mm-hmm. And you're also literally seeing people enlarged, on a screen in a way that, does something to you. So, I think the movie will survive as far as it being in theatrical experience. It's just like its influence is arguably maybe changing. Unfortunately.
Yeah, because it's like, why do I sit through a whole hour-and-a-half movie when I can watch a little 3-second snippet on TikTok?
Right.
And attention spans are being so short now. You're right. I mean, we do consume our entertainment and our media so much different. I mean, this podcast is one example of that. Mm-hmm. I'm sold. When I started in radio, I played actual vinyl records on turntables on an AM station,
right, Right.
And so the media in general is a constantly evolving thing. And right now it's evolving at a very rapid pace, and who knows where it's going to lead.
One thing, though, that I really believe is that movies last forever. Like I think YouTube videos or TikToks or Facebook Lives, there's such a, it's like a unending pool of content that will get lost, and maybe some of it will be preserved. But like, I was watching the studios of show on Apple. I was watching, and it's something that someone says in the first episode. They're like, you make a good movie and it lasts forever. And I did think to myself when I was making my Omaha, and it's part of why it took so long, is that I knew that this is going to last forever. And I want people in 30 to 40 years to want to play the movie. My film features A Time for Burning a lot, which, have you seen that movie?
I have seen it years and years ago, yeah. That people that don't remember, that was a movie that was made, in 68?
65 or 6.
Yeah, and it involved race relations in Omaha. It won an Academy Award, did it not?
It was nominated
for an Academy Award. Featured Ernie Chambers and that. That is a focal point of your film.
It is, and the beautiful thing is that movie continues to get played, because people get something out of it. Not just here, by the way. Like it is played and recognized. It's on the Criterion Channel, which is like a streaming service for kind of film nerds. But that's what that was the intention with my Omaha, was that I wanted to make something that I believed could stand the test of time, and I hope that it does.
It's it is interesting to hear you think that way, because I wrote a book, and one of my fantasies was thinking that 100 years from now, somebody's going to be up in grandma's attic and come across this book. and I mean, obviously the book is nothing to write home about, but at the same time, it's just the idea that it's there and it's permanent and it's an actual tribute to your work. So I understand where you're coming from when you talk about that, and I do think it will stand the test of time. And I do think that as more people find out about this movie, if more people hear about it, I do think that you're going to see more distribution, and I have no doubt that it will end up on a streaming service somewhere. And hopefully it's one of the big ones, because there are a million streaming services out there, but some of them are real niche. Whereas if you can be on, like I said, maybe a Netflix or an Apple TV or something like that, it would get more of a wider audience. Again, the movie is called My Omaha. It is going to be playing out at the Film Streams Theater in Dundee from Tuesday, October 14th through the 23rd, right? Through the 23rd. Is any chance it might be held over if ticket sales are good?
It could. Yeah, that's always a chance.
So go
tell your friends, tell your family.
Go and get the tickets and go see My Omaha there at the Dundee Theater. And Nick, I am, like I said, I knew you as a kid. You and my nephew were really good friends, and so I'm really I'm just so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I'm just so proud of what you've accomplished, and I know that my whole family actually is very excited about being at the premiere. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be a special night.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for having me on to talk about it.
No, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for doing this. Till next time. Hey, don't forget, talk about the YouTube channel. Yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then, of course, follow us on Facebook, and, the Beckett's Talking Facebook page. And, of course, every week, a brand new podcast with interesting people, primarily from the Omaha area, primarily with a story you might not be able to get anywhere else. And they're all archived on the YouTube channel, so if you missed one or two or just want to go back and relive some of the other ones, check it out. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Take care, and bye, y'all.